Hey guys, Adam from ZFG Racing. I wanted to get on here today and talk about a Gen 2 Raptor that I finished up about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, as kind of a follow-up video to the Gen 3 Raptor that we posted last week. Now the Gen 3 Raptor we did on multiple fuels, including E50 and E85. What's different about this Gen 2 is it's only going to be on 93 octane. I get that not everybody has ethanol readily available to them, and that kind of stinks. You know, we're always going to try to push you guys to go to ethanol, because ethanol, even at E50 or E85, is the safest, best fuel for making power in an EcoBoost. It provides the most knock resistance. It provides all the evaporative cooling right in the cylinder, being a direct injected engine, and that really helps long term. And it just makes a lot more power, and you know, more power is better, right? So we're always going to try to push you there, and there's a couple different ways to slice it on the F-150, and maybe someday I can make a video going over that if that's something you guys are interested in. But in this case, this is going to be a stock fuel system and 93 octane only with Garrett Stage 2 turbos, which is a great option for anybody looking for turbos for a Gen 2. Like I said, with the Gen 3, it's probably the best off-the-shelf turbo that you can really get. So, you know, we're only doing 93 octane, and it's also important to remember that with our 93 octane tunes, they are compatible with E30. There's a lot of companies out there that'll make you a dedicated E30 tune. I personally don't, unless the platform only has the fuel system capacity for E30. I would much prefer you go to E50, because E50, again, more ethanol is better. We want to try to run the most amount of ethanol that we can. But like I said, all of our tunes, all of our 93 and 91 and even auto octane are compatible with up to 30% ethanol. And what that's going to do, or what the ECU is going to do, is it's going to add a little bit of timing through the knock correction logic, and that's going to give you a little bump in power. And it's going to give you a little more of knock resistance and a threshold for safety and all that good stuff too. But mainly it's going to give you a bump in the power. And in this case, you know, for an F-150 with a 93 tune, you put a little ethanol in there, you're probably going to get about 30 extra horsepower. And that rings true on pretty much all of the EcoBoost platforms. That's about what it's going to be. Now, obviously that's very dependent on where the tune ended up, and you know, the other conditions, weather conditions. In a really hot area, you're going to get more benefit from ethanol. If it was already pretty cold out when you did your first tune, you know, you're not going to see as much of a benefit, just because the air manifold charge temperatures and intake temperatures are going to be lower to begin with already, which means you're already going to be running that extra timing. But anyway, so back to what I was saying, Gen 2 Raptor, pretty much full bolt-on. I don't have all of the specifics for you, but it is intake intercooler. It does have the extra inlet tubes from AMS. The important thing to remember about doing these turbos on a Gen 2 or a Gen 3, you really don't have a choice, but on a Gen 2, you need to make sure that you run the 2.5 inch 45-degree inlet to the turbos. You cannot run the stock inlets. The stock inlets will choke those turbos. You will not make good horsepower numbers. You'll barely make more than stock horsepower. So you need to get those stock inlets right off of there, and you need to run the AMS inlet tubes with the 2.5 inch adapter on the bottom of them. And that's going to give you the best recipe for success with these. And if you didn't watch the other video, like I said, we pretty much made up to 700 horsepower on the off-the-shelf version of these Garrett turbos. That would be on ethanol. There's a good video in the video links below, I should say, that has that. That was on a regular F-150 that had the HO engine put in it. And also that Raptor that we showed last week was 694 horsepower, you know, getting pretty close to that 700 horsepower territory. The thing you do have to watch out with these turbos is your shaft speed. They are pretty robust, but they're not perfect, obviously. So you want to make sure you stay under that shaft speed threshold. And don't overspeed these turbos, because they will disintegrate at some point in time if you continually overspeed them. So that's really important. All right, like I said in the previous video, you guys, if you put these turbos on your car, it is an investment in the future, because you do have another upgrade path to about 850 horsepower, and that's going to be with putting the race wheels on from CRP Performance. Those wheels are great. It is going to come at a significant hit to your spool, but the maximum flow on those wheels is way more than what the Garretts can handle. And the reason we did that is all shaft speed driven. When we were really pushing these turbos, trying to get the off-the-shelf Garretts into the 9s or even really low 10s, we struggled a lot with the shaft speed and just trying to manage the expectations with the turbos, because trying to go further, we were constantly right on that edge on the shaft speed. So I thought, let's do a bigger wheel. We might not get a whole lot more flow out of the exhaust side, but at least we'll get the shaft speed down some for what we had. And it turns out we actually got a lot more flow out of the exhaust side and got another 150 horsepower out of these turbos, which I'm still impressed with these days. I mean, that's a huge gain on something that is basically an off-the-shelf turbo still, by just upgrading the compressor wheel. So, and like I said, there's links to those videos, or there's videos if you go to our channel and take a look. There's a couple 850 horsepower and a couple 9-second F-150s on there. And I'm sorry if you guys get dizzy when I'm walking around the shop. For some reason, it feels better, it feels more natural if I'm walking around the shop while I'm talking to you on the camera. I don't know why. Maybe it's just an ADHD quirk or something, but it definitely helps me. And if you guys are wondering about this car back here, this is a Bronco Sport. I think I mentioned it in the Gen 3 video, but the plans for this was a salvage title. It was hit up in this corner. You can see it's still got the damaged fender on it, still got some airbags popped in it. But it is the 3-cylinder 1.5 liter EcoBoost. And what do you guys think? Do you think we should slap a tune in this and try to put it on the dyno? It is all-wheel drive, but I'm pretty sure we can disconnect some stuff or do some stuff in the tune to make it front-wheel drive only and stick it on the dyno. I'm curious. I'm looking at this engine and I'm like, dang, this thing is really small. I don't know. I kind of want to get another one, because I have so much free time. That's a joke. I don't have any free time. But I kind of want to get another one and build like a buggy or something and put it in there, because I mean, this whole engine package is like 3 feet. But anyway, if you guys are interested in seeing that, get a tune on it and go on the dyno, drop a comment below, and we'll see if we can make that happen. It's going to be a couple more weeks. I got parts on order to get it fixed. We got to get all the airbags replaced, all that good stuff. So anyway, let's get back to this Raptor. Again, so this is Injected Engineering. They're down in Georgia. This is, I don't know how many I've done for them, quite a few. For sure, this is the second Gen 2 Raptor with the Garrett Stage 2s. The first one made in the 590 horsepower range. And as you're about to see, this one made 600 horsepower plus. And it did make more than 600 foot-pounds of torque. I did kind of clip that and eliminate that just because I felt like that spike was unnecessary. I get that people like torque, but torque is what breaks things. So I did clip that down to 580 foot-pounds, which I feel is a lot better for the 93 octane and just the way this truck is set up. So let's go ahead and we'll roll the video of it on the dyno, and then I'll come back and talk about the dyno chart. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, this is 93 octane E10. There's no extra ethanol added for this particular dyno because, again, they don't have ethanol on the pump down there or near this location or where this customer is going to be. So this was straight up 93 octane, 10% ethanol. So there is the potential to have, a 20-30 horsepower bump just from adding some ethanol in that. I just wanted to mention that in case that question comes up, because I did talk about our tunes being compatible with E30. All right, guys, I flashed the dyno numbers up on the screen here, but let's sit down and talk about these and digest them a little bit, and I'll tell you why I did what I did. So I got them pulled up on the computer here. As you can see, these are a little out of order. The blue one is actually before the red one, and the green one was actually the next day. So what I did here is, initially the truck was making quite a bit of torque, 640 foot-pounds, which you can see that truck has a fairly large tire setup on it. I do think it was maybe spinning on the dyno a little bit, and that might be why it was so spiky, peaky. But I don't like to leave them like that. Yeah, it's an impressive number to put up, but I prefer a much flatter curve, you know, as flat as I can get it. I like to pick a number torque-wise and just try to carry it all the way across. That gives you a more linear feel power-wise, and it doesn't feel like the truck is kind of just fading off right after the initial hit. Plus, it's not as hard on everything. If we would have left it at 640 foot-pounds, that's a lot for pump gas. Peak torque, peak cylinder pressures, what you end up doing is creating a lot of extra heat, and you end up actually hurting your top end more, and you can kind of see that in this graph. We flip back over here and you can see that both of the numbers that made higher torques, they struggled a little bit right here. Again, this tune isn't any different up top here, but they struggled a little bit here in this midsection, and then they fell off quicker up top. And a lot of that has to do with how much torque we made over here. Because we made such a big number there, we put a lot of heat into the cylinders, and we end up being able to hold less timing across the rest of the power band. So again, trying to draw a nice straight line. Again, I think it was spinning a little bit on the dyno, and that's why you have this dip here. The dip doesn't show in the logs as a drop in boost or anything, so I didn't really do anything about it. I like to see this kind of stuff on the street, because usually if it is a real dip, it's a boost control related thing, and it's because the dyno isn't loaded up enough. I'm not sure if they have an eddy current dyno, but like when I use the one up here, we put some load on it, and then that gets rid of that dip because it's just a weird spot. But if we do still see this dip even with the load on it, I usually like to try to correct it on the street after the fact, because it's, again, more boost control related. In the street, it's always going to give you the more realistic boost control problem to solve, I guess. Obviously, because you're driving it on the street more than you're driving it on the dyno. So yeah, so this is where we ended up. I ended up bringing the torque all the way down to 580 foot-pounds. Again, that's a personal preference, and I do believe that's how we carry the power out better. And then 600 horsepower. So pretty darn good for pump gas. I'm not going to say every one of them is going to make that on pump gas. You know, a lot of it has to do with how the truck was modded and built. And Eric over at Injected Engineering does a great job with these builds. If you guys are in the Georgia area, I believe it's South Georgia, don't quote me on that, but if you're in the Georgia vicinity, I definitely would look them up, and I would bring your Raptor to them for mods. I would really like to do one on E85 with them, because they're super easy to work with when it comes to dynoing, and they definitely know what they're doing in terms of building the trucks. I've done a couple other cars with them. I did an EcoBoost Mustang not that long ago, that with them, which is the S650, the newer Mustangs. Pretty cool 2.3 in that. That is actually direct and port injected, so that is pretty awesome. That again was only on 93 octane. I do think by looking at the injector charts and the direct injection and the capacity there, that we could run fully 85 right out of the box on those. Again, haven't had any time to experiment with any of those. We don't do a whole lot of 4-cylinder stuff here, just because the 4-cylinder market is pretty well saturated. There's a lot of tuners that do a lot of good work out there, so we're not trying to get into that market, but I will take them as they come along. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Thanks for tuning in and listening to me ramble. Hopefully you guys learned something. If you guys have any questions, I do pay attention to the comments. Go ahead and drop your question there. If you have ideas for videos that you want to see, go ahead and drop that in the comments as well. I'm always looking for ideas. I am trying to do like one video a week. So anyway, if you have any ideas on stuff topics that you would like to talk about, stuff you'd like to see, just go ahead and drop it in the comments and I'll see what I can do. But that's all I got for now. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you later.